interrupt the root and toot and rock and roll hour to bring you this urgent news flash.
Deadline day wouldn't be complete without Nottingham Forest dipping their toe back in again to either try to resurrect a deal that's been in the offing for a while or looking to do a late deal for a whole new player that has appeared out of nowhere. And today, of course, Nottingham Forest did both. Now then, the window slammed shut. I mean, it never closes in any other way, of course. Slammed shut just about an hour ago, and we're still waiting on final confirmation on what did or didn't get over the line. Now, we're going old school on this episode with just the two of us here to take you through Forest's summer transfer window. So, hello and welcome back again today to Talking Reds and Nottingham Forest podcast, hosted by myself, Greg Oram, along with my fellow Forest fanatic, all the way from across the Atlantic, Mr. Richard Spray.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration? Hold up. Wait a minute.
Wow, you look... Stop eating hot.
We've got a little fat guy that will turn him inside out. He'll turn him inside out, inside out, inside out. Very talented, highly skilled, believable outside left.
Well, welcome back, guys. We're giving you a second dose. And for those of you that didn't catch us on our earlier episode, my internet's still down. So I'm at my dad's again, still. No time to get any intros done. So I'm delving into the archives with another intro there from previous months or so, just to get us going, get the juices flowing. And I almost got kind of thrown out of my box at the start because all of a sudden the intro went a little bit weird. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. Looks like there's been an intro added, Richard, along the way. I don't know, on the video clips. Not quite sure where that's come from. But anyway, we are up and running. We are here. And we thank you for coming along and joining us. I'll get straight into it with asking you to hit like and subscribe and all the rest of it. So along the way, we'll remind you, if we can, about some of that. Richard Spray, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Well caffeinated at this stage, so ready for a bit of a chat about the madness and the mayhem that has ensued in this today and then in previous weeks. But definitely good things though have come out of it. So it's not just completely mental time. It's actually got some quality and some added depth to our squad, which I'm looking forward to reviewing.
Fantastic. Okay, so the podcasts always get really busy on a day like this. So we thought it would be quite good to come an hour or so after the window slams shut to have a chat about Forest and what the business has been like. But we're still waiting, Richard, on a couple of things to be confirmed. So let's just kind of focus on the last set of hours or so. All of a sudden, we learned that Forest are back in for Dylan Bakwa. He's the winger that we are quite excited about because he's a tricky player, and we know that Nuno has been looking for wingers all the way back from the start of last season. If you remember, start of last season in pre-season, he was talking about the need to play with wingers. We had we had Callum, we had Alanga, and then we brought Jota Silva in and we brought Ramon Sosa in, and we kind of felt like, okay, we had a little bit of depth there, but those two players clearly haven't worked out. And so the need to bring in real quality is very, very evident. So Dylan Bakwa, we are waiting for that to be announced. Now, this is a player that Dan Scape on Talking Reds flagged up when we were talking about wingers around the time that Alanga disappeared. And he was also talking about Dan Ndoye as well. So we're expecting this one to get over the line, Richard. Is this the kind of player we need at Forest? I might have lost Richard.
I think
he's
so.
back.
I think he adds a little bit of firepower. He can play a little bit of the. Uh-oh. Am I back?
Yeah,
I'm back.
you're
okay. Yeah, of course. What
you're freezing.
Computer
freezing
just not grumpy laptop today.
Don't freeze, because I'll be left on my own.
Boy.
This is the danger part. Just you and me. But if
Am I
if
all
you
right,
drop
or
out,
is it still going?
Sorry,
but
left on my own. Yeah, you're in and out a little bit, mate. I'm asking you about Dylan Bakwa. Go ahead. So I'm going to do at the moment, guys, while Richard sorts out his internet. I'm going to switch to the comments. We've got one or two with us. Ian Wigginton says, "Afternoon, boys. Good to have you in the comments, Ian." And the Grand Madness, Andrew Cove says, "The best sign in this window would be a normal week at the City Ground. No dramas, no Nuno meltdown, no underperformances. Just do what is expected." Stephen says, "Good evening as well." And Gary Lamb, Red Gadjo, good evening. Hello to you. Great to have you with us as well. So it looks like it's me on my own here at the moment, guys. So I'll do my best to keep you entertained whilst Richard sorts out his internet at the moment. So what we know so far is that the Dylan Bakwa deal is waiting to be put over the line. One or two on X are suggesting that Strasbourg have confirmed it at their end. So this one looks likely. This one looks like it's going to get done or has been done. Those of you that follow transfer deadline day, and I'm sure that that's all of you, will know that you can put in something called a deal sheet, right? So if you put in a deal sheet before the 7 p.m. window closure, a signed deal sheet from all the parties involved, that effectively buys you 2 more hours to get a deal done. So we're hoping that is a situation that has helped the Dylan Bakwa situation. The other deal that was being talked about in the last set of hours was one for Javi Galan from Atletico Madrid. Now, this was being touted by Fabrizio Romano and other outlets as well, that it was happening, that this was a player that was coming from Atletico Madrid, a 30-year-old with a load of experience. And all of a sudden, the Forest fan base seemed to get quite excited about this. Not a player that I know anything about, I've got to be honest with you. What I do know is that he's 30 years old, so a bit more experienced. What I also know is that he played a lot of games for Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone. So that alone tells me that he's a good player. He has to be a good player. Diego Simeone builds his teams on strong defense. So it felt pretty good to me that a player of his quality was going to come in and give us the depth that we truly need. That seems to have fallen through, and that comes down to documentation as well at the moment, guys. So we are waiting on confirmation, I guess, officially, that it's kind of fallen through. But again, without anything coming from the club or from any other sources at the moment, we're still kind of in limbo. Richard is coming back and he's joining me again. Are you here?
I hope so.
Oh, he's here. Phil in the comments was getting quite worried. He's saying, "Look, Greg is getting properly shafted here." I was doing a lot of
I know.
I don't mind. I can do it. Those that know me know that I can talk, and give me a microphone and put me on my own. I'll just talk. And I was probably going to start sending SOSs out to people to come and join me. But you're back. You're back. Before I bring you back in, Richard, properly, let me quickly say thank you to Mark Way NFFC for the £2 donation. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you donating. He's just about got over yesterday. He says, "Bring on Arsenal." I'm kind of licking my wounds a little bit still, but yes, I agree, Mark. You know, we have to move on. Friar Tuck says lots of signings this window, but how many of them are better than our current starters? Well, that's a good question, Friar Tuck, and one that we will get into. But Richard, I was asking you about Dylan Bakwa.
Yeah, I think he brings a lot of energy, a lot of pace, a lot of creativity off of that bench. I mean, I could see him pushing for starting roles, even with Ndoye coming in and being a pretty expensive signing in and of himself. But I think Dylan offers a little bit different variation of what we probably closer to or sort of akin to Elanga. Granted, his pace is elite, but Dylan Bakwa's got that. And he's also got that propensity to also play more of like a wing back role too, which, I think Nuno is going to want to employ. I mean, we've seen Aina do a good job pressing forward, but his crossing is a lot left to be desired on his crosses, especially in the last match. So Bakwa definitely has a goal in him too. It's nice having that left-footed player on the right-hand side that I know Danscape has been coveting. We got a little bit of that with Hutchinson involved, but now having that kind of depth and quality coming off the bench to add a little bit more dimension to our club is definitely something that we needed. It's just a stark difference from what we were used to last season, given that there were times where, Nuno was hesitant to even play Ramon Sosa, who was a true winger. So it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have this amount of players that provide that kind of level of talent and ability. So it'll be interesting to see how he manages all of this collectively, because I don't even think Nuno probably anticipated this being the kind of business we were going to do in this window. I mean, it's just been phenomenal to see how this is shaped up in terms of the overall 25 on the squad. But yeah, Bakwa is definitely a young and up and coming player, an ascending player that I'm glad we have a hold of right now, because typically when it's a Strasbourg player and they have talent and they have ability, they're usually taken by Chelsea and deposited on the bench there and sort of kept at bay from anyone else. So it was good that we could kind of take him away from that top 6 team and sort of insert him into our lineup and be able to take advantage of his skill sets.
So one winger that Nuno was really keen to get at the club is Adama Traore. So this is a player that effectively has been kind of named as almost one of the reasons why the fallout with Edu happened. Nuno wanted to be reunited with Traore, who he worked with at Wolves. It looked like it was blocked from the club. And then we moved into another direction with signing Amari Hutchinson. And it looked like the Adama Traore deal was never going to happen. All of a sudden, in the last 2 or 3 hours, Adama Traore's name is mentioned again. Forest are in negotiations with Fulham to sign Adama Traore. It came from the same guy. I can't remember his name. It came from the same guy that broke the story, about Nuno being under pressure from the club a couple of weeks back and them thinking about sacking him. So whether it's been whoever's put it into the public domain, it kind of felt like it was going in there for a reason. And personally, I might be in the minority, but I am or was willing to get on board with the Traore signing. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but I do think that he's got something to offer. And what we seem to have missed is that blistering pace down the right-hand side with Elanga going. And Traore definitely brings that. He brings physicality, he brings baby oil and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of feel like, as a bench option, definitely, he has something really unique to offer when you need that kind of injection of pace down the right-hand side. So I was willing to get on board with that. So when his name came up again earlier, I was like, okay, this could be good. But maybe it was an olive branch. Maybe the club was saying to Nuno, look, this is the player you want and we want to make you happy. And a lot of people were kind of surmising, does that mean that Nuno is going to stay if he gets Traore? Now, it's gone very quiet. The window has closed. Could it be something that all of a sudden pops up that we sign this guy? I mean, what are your thoughts on Traore? Will we have too many wingers if we did have him without, with Bakwa coming in and Hudson-Odoi, Hutchinson? We'd have 5 wingers. Some might say that's too many.
Yeah, I mean, to your point earlier, he coveted that role. He wanted, significant depth in the wide areas. Yeah, I mean, and one thing that is clearly not evident in what we've signed in terms of, or not that it's not evident, but that we haven't quite grasped onto and employed in this process of bringing in these players and recruiting these players is someone with a little bit of a veteran presence that provides, a history of being one associated with the manager and understanding his the way that he operates and understanding how he's going to set a team up, specifically in terms of how he sets them up related to European competition. So you have that value. He brings that to the table, experience, as we know. He certainly has the physicality, and he certainly has the pace, as you mentioned. And I know Dan's brought this up in relation to how Nuno utilized the back five with using Traore in a wing back type role, which, you know, I think historically has probably not been what he's used for. But having that sort of, again, variation of options for Nuno is clearly something that he values and has wanted to see, and that part is evident in how we've recruited, because we recruited players that can play multiple roles as needed, and so it provides a little bit more multiplicity of ways that you set up and the way that you can attack opposing teams. As we said, do I really want him? I wouldn't be disappointed if he was brought in. Was he one that I would probably prioritize? Probably not, simply because I think you're going to get a player like Bakwa who has some experience in a competitive league, but he's younger, he's just a little bit quicker, and he's shown a greater propensity to this stage to score goals and to be a threat from that in that way. Traore, as we know, he can be a little hot and cold at times, so that's why I think you bring in a player who's hungry, who's going to be coming in not on the the latter half of his career, but at the beginning half of his career, a player that you can flip potentially in that sort of Brighton, Eintracht Frankfurt model that we've wanted to do. And you're bringing in a player, though, as I said, that's not just coming in fresh with no experience. He's got experience, maybe not in the Premier League, clearly, but clearly in a league that provides elite talent. So I wouldn't be upset if that does get across the line, but at the same time, I think you're now really starting to stress the idea of what Nuno can do and how he can deploy these players and keep everybody somewhat happy and being able to function, because there's plenty of matches to go around between cups and European competition and so on and so forth. But still, it's just a lot to have to deal with, especially considering we know he's erred on the side of a lean squad previously. And so that starts to push him into realms that he probably isn't comfortable with, even if he does know the player.
Sure. Okay. Mark is asking in the comments, has anyone gone? Right. So just a quick summary on what's happened today. Eric da Silva Moreira has left to go on loan for the whole season to Rio Ave, the other club, or one of the other clubs in the Marinakis empire. So he needed game time. He needed a loan. I think it's a good move for him. Josh Bowler has left the club by mutual consent. So his contract has been terminated. And in the last couple of minutes, I've noticed on X that he has now rejoined Blackpool on a permanent deal. So contract terminated at Forest, and he's now at Blackpool. We wish him well. Listen, players come into the club at a certain time. Didn't ever get a kick at Forest, but, he certainly isn't a player that I'm going to think about in any kind of negative way. I wish him well. Manuel Dennis, he had his contract terminated, I think, at the weekend as well, as I was travelling up on Sunday. I heard that. So, again, came into the club at a time when we were signing a whole load of players in that first summer. And, again, never really performed for the club. But, again, never really felt like a troublemaker, to be honest with you. He came in, he took loans where possible, I think, and he's now left the club as well. So, good luck to the pair of them. I guess the other two that we need to talk about in a moment will be Jota Silva and Taiwo Awoniyi. Both of those players have been spoken about today as possibly exiting the club. Jota Silva especially, Sporting trying to make a deal happen for him. Botafogo also trying to make a deal happen for him. So we don't know if any of those have got over the line. I'll be honest with you, I'm not aware of the closure in Brazil in terms of a window. So if that still is open, then there's every chance that if Jota is still officially at Forest, that something can happen there. Lisbon in Portugal, their window closes the same time as ours. So if that hasn't happened, then it's not going to happen. Whilst you were freezing and left me all on my own, I was filling in talking about Javi Galan, the left back rather from Atletico Madrid, and saying that, I didn't know much about him, but at 30 years old, very experienced, plays with Diego Simeone and all the rest of it. A lot of people getting excited about him. It looks like that has fallen through. Just quickly interrupting, Brazil window closes tomorrow. So Andrew Cove with a bit of information there. So there's still time for that to be done. So on Javi Galan, that would have left us with 5 fullbacks. Again, would that have been maybe one too many? I mean, kind of felt confusing that Cuibano is due to be announced as well, we think. So he was coming in as the left back cover, and then another one was coming along. Did it feel like Forest were trying to squeeze stuff in very, very late and very, very disorganized?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it disorganized. I would say that they're just it's a contingency plan for AFCON, right? Because we know that Ina's going to be out, so you've got to be able to factor in that you need 2 deep for those areas once AFCON is a reality. So I think that's kind of probably the thinking. At least that's my conjecture on the situation, without obviously having firsthand knowledge. But he definitely provides that classic sort of left-footed left back, and he's got a little bit more depth, I think, to his game in relation to the defensive side of it. Clearly, Cuibano is more of an advancing player. He likes to play almost in an inverted midfield or overlapping sort of role. So having somebody with probably what you anticipated getting, and did get at times with Alex Moreno last season, but because of the ascendancy of Nico and how much he became a well-rounded fullback, and I mean, really, his stats started to eclipse Ina when we were saying Ina was the best right back in the league. So I think having that kind of depth and having that experience, as you pointed out with Simeone, he's going to come from a very defensive mindset. So that's a good thing to add to to Nuno's toolkit. But it's unfortunate it couldn't get across the line. That being said, I think he'll find ways to manage it, and in a pinch, you can always have someone on the right like a Savona, and you can have Ina move over to the left. That's the value of the kind of variability that we offer from what we currently have on the 2 fullbacks that we currently, even if they're not both left-footed, clearly they do operate pretty effectively on that left-hand side and do have good cohesion with Callum. So I think it may become too many at certain intervals, but as far as like when it comes to AFCON, I don't think so.
No, I think I agree with you, and I said on previous episodes that we've done that I don't just want fullbacks coming in just to be the cover. I want real competition for Nico and for Ola, and I want that in all the positions, in every single position on the pitch, of course. But it felt like, it felt like everybody was saying, well, look, we know that Ola starts on the right and Nico starts on the left because they're so good. So we just need people to back them up. And I think that's fine to a certain degree. But we saw on Sunday that Ola Aina didn't have his best game again for Forest. He has had a couple of games in his Forest career that he's not been at it, and that's natural. You're going to have that, but his ceiling has been really high, and he's rose to the occasion many, many times. But I want him to feel the heat. I want Nico to feel the heat with someone behind him fighting for that shirt. So it was really pleasing that Forest did bring in Nicolo Savona, and he was confirmed and introduced to the crowd at the game on Sunday. So he's the Italian player. He's 22 years old. I keep looking over my left here. I've got all the players written down that we've signed with their ages as well. And it really strikes me that these players coming in, by and large, all fit into a certain age bracket. So I'm just going to kind of run through these ages and these players. So Savona, the right back, he's 22 years old, in from Juventus. James McAtee, in from Man City, 22. Amari Hutchinson, in from Ipswich, 21. Cali Mwendo, in from Rennes, 23. Igor Jesus, in from Botafogo, 24. Dan Ndoye, in from Bologna, 24. And then Jair Cunha, also from Botafogo, at 20 years old. The 2 that kind of stand out being slightly older would be Douglas Luiz at 27. So not that old, but still slightly above that age. And then John Victor, the goalkeeper, at 29 from Botafogo. So, still not in their 30s. So there's definitely a plan in place, if you like, to bring players in of a certain age bracket. But on Savona, played a good set of games for Juventus. 6'4" right back. I mean, again, Forest seems to be signing the tallest players ever. John Victor's coming in at 6'5". I know we lost Carlos Miguel. I think 6'9" or something like that. He was so tall players coming in, but a very tall right back. Good cover for Ola Aina. Going to challenge him? Do you think?
I don't know if he's going to challenge him, but I definitely think he offers a different dimension, as you pointed out. Although I think that apparently the data on him is that he's not very good in aerial duels. So that's not a good thing, obviously, for a guy at 6'4", because we already have an issue with that with Morato. But he seems pretty athletic, kind of in that same mold as Jair Cunha. Jair's not a natural right back. Seems like Savona has played there more. So that certainly gives you an option in both areas of the pitch if needed, which is definitely a value to what, as we said, just the dimensions of these players that we have. McAtee being able to play out wide, being able to play at 10, Anderson being able to play every midfield position, including probably a wing. So it just fits within the mold that Nuno's got. But yeah, I don't see him immediately being that guy. But Ina's 27, going to be 28, not too long from now. So he's starting to move towards that portion of his career. He's certainly had injuries issues at times. So it'll be interesting to see if Savona actually does get an opportunity. If he plays extremely well, does that put pressure on the potential of Ina not being able to get his spot back? You never like to see that, but happen to a player. But he's going to have opportunities, I would imagine, when, like I said, come AFCON, to show what he's capable of, and he'll have had plenty of time to kind of integrate at that stage. But I wouldn't say he's an immediate challenge to Ina. I just think Ina's skill sets are just so diverse, and I don't know how much Savona, having not watched a ton of film on him, really plays in the same manner. He seems to have a different style to him, so we'll see.
Yeah, he doesn't play in the same manner. He's very much a more defensive-minded right back. He's not going to be marauding down the wing, in the same kind of vein that Ina does. And I think he's even played as on the right side of three-man centre-backs as well. So it feels to me like he's a fullback closer. I mean, we've seen Nuno, I beg your pardon, we've seen Ola Aina run himself really ragged quite a lot in games where it felt like he's needed to go off on 75 minutes or maybe 80, but we just haven't had the appropriate cover to bring on. So maybe this is the kind of guy that you bring on when you're trying to close a game out, a bit more defensive minded. We've done the same with Morato last season coming into the centre back position. So maybe we'll see something similar with Savona coming in at right back. Okay. Darren Waplington has given us £1.99, £2. Thank you very much, Darren. That has gone into the pot. We salute you, sir. Once again, it was great to meet you at the Trent Navigation yesterday. If you are watching along, please do let us know your thoughts on Forest's summer transfer window. Let us know if you're happy, who you're most excited about at the moment. Do you think any particular player deserves to start against Arsenal? Who do you want to see? Are you happy with Dan Ndoye keeping his spot? Or is it time for maybe James McAtee or Amari Hutchinson, Cali Mwendo, Douglas Luiz? There's quite a list there, isn't there, of players that we've now got on that bench that are vying for position. And in this international break, they hopefully will be doing what they can to catch Nuno's attention. We've got about 14 players away on duty. So that does mean it's going to be kind of a slimmed down group working at Forest. Hopefully it gives the new players, a chance to customize themselves with their surroundings a little bit more. Please do go ahead and hit like and subscribe. You can follow us on X and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all the usual places, guys. So please do hit like and subscribe. We're doing our best to get the podcast uploaded to Apple still. Spotify isn't a problem anymore, but the Apple thing seems to have got stuck. So we apologize for that. The transfer window, Richard, it's closed now. And there's always the argument that people say, well, look, it goes on too long. The transfer window should really be closed before the first game of the season so that there's none of this overlapping, because we've seen it today. The whole Alexander Isak thing, and I'm opening the conversation just for the moment, if I may, just a bit wider away from Forest to the wider kind of transfer scene. And we've seen the whole Alexander Isak scenario and also Johan Wissa situation. So they've got their moves that they went on strike for. And I still have not forgiven Pierre van Hooijdonk for what he did at Forest. And, as good a player as he was, I still can't forgive him for that, because for me, I think it's sacrilege. So what Isak and Wissa have done, I think is, pretty appalling, but they've got their moves. One other move that has fallen through is Mark Guehi to Liverpool. That looked like he was going to cross the line, but it's kind of fallen through due to Palace not being able to get any replacement in. And I'm reading as I'm talking that Oliver Glasner was threatening to resign if Gerhi left. And so, you know, everything seems to be, or things rather seem to be a little bit up and down over at Crystal Palace at the moment. And we know all about the shenanigans with those over the last couple of weeks. So a few deals here and there that are happening. Spurs have brought in one or two interesting players in the last day or two. And I think I saw, is it Kolo Muwande that's come in the last set of hours as well for them. So, you know, they're strengthening as well. So teams that are going to be vying for the European spots, teams that are trying to stay in the division, Sunderland, for example, I mentioned this on the podcast earlier. You know, Sunderland going out and getting Brian Brobby, who is a player I know you like, Richard, and you wanted at Forest a year ago. You know, I take my hat off to them because they're trying. They want to stay in the division. But then you got the likes of Spurs that are now finally trying to bring in the players that they want to try and compete as well. I've just lost Richard as I'm speaking as well, so I'm going to have to fill in a bit more for those of you that aren't watching and listening later. Richard's unfortunately just dropped out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's always interesting when it comes to the transfer window with all these clubs that are trying to bring in high quality signings. And then I go back to Forest and I look at the business that they've been doing and what they've been trying to do. It's not an easy landscape to operate in, guys. You've got a situation where players have the power, and that's been evident with the Isak and Worcester situation. The power is kind of in their hands. They can say, like, I'm going to down tools. You know, if you're not going to let me go, then I ain't playing for you anymore. And it's as simple as that. And as much as that is unpalatable, in the end, the clubs are going to have to do the best for the clubs. And so Newcastle take the money, 125 million from Liverpool, and then they go and chuck 55 million at Worcester, and those players get their move. And Forest are trying to operate in a market where, you know, we saw the battle that was on to try and get Dan Doyle to come to Forest, and he did choose us. And then Dylan Bakwa, who we hope has got over the line. Now, that is a player that was also attracting attention from elsewhere as well. Kouibano, who we hope to have confirmed within the hour or so. That's another player who Brighton were very, very interested in and were coming back in for again. So it is rather worth mentioning that these deals don't just happen. It's not a 5-minute thing. There's a lot of work going in and on behind the scenes to make things happen. Players need to be kept happy. Agents need to be kept happy. And the deal's got to be right. The personal terms have got to be right. Richard hopefully is going to try and get back to join me on his phone. I will, in the meantime, say to the Lord, £2 from the Lord. Thank you very much for that donation. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. I can see Richard there. I think I'm going to add him in because I'm not sure he can do it. There he is. There he is.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I can hear you, no problem at all. I was padding again. I was padding again.
Of course.
And so I was talking about the wider transfer thing, Richard, and players having the power and how difficult it is for clubs to operate. And so I guess what I'm kind of getting to is Forest have signed what looks like 9, 10, 11 players again in this window. There's a lot of incomings, and it's easy to be critical. Oh, I'm not sure about him. Oh no, I don't like him. You know, you can't keep everybody happy, but due diligence is required, and the clubs are trying to bring in players that are going to be able to do a job for Nuno on the team. So I was hoping to kind of use your deck then to kind of go through our whole transfer window, but unfortunately that's knocked out. So I'm going to see if I can load it up because I think you sent it to me before, didn't you? So
did, yeah.
Well, I'm going to do that, and whilst I do that, I want you to give me your overall appraisal of how you think this window has been for Forest.
Yeah, I think by the sheer volume, it starts to feel a bit akin to what we were used to in the first season. The difference is that we're talking about, I think, players that can play in the Premier League. Clearly, McAtee's had enough experience. He's not had significant minutes in the Premier League, but enough to be sort of somewhat familiar with the pace and the quality of what he's going to have to deal with, week in and week out. Similarly, Hutchinson, albeit for not a very good Ipswich side, Callum Owendo, who's, again, I always like these players that come from leagues, whether it be Bundesliga, whether it be Ligue 1 or even Serie A, where they face competition, whether that be within an actual trophy, sort of competition like Europa or Conference League, they're face competition that's going to challenge them and help them grow and develop as players. And so clearly we, as you pointed out, I think a little bit ago, the profile is evident and clear. We wanted young players that we felt could offer a lot right now, but also at the same time had enough time to develop so that they can sort of slowly integrate into the team, because we do have sort of a solidified starting 11. But I think as a general whole, I think as a holistic sort of view of the, comprehensive view of the transfer window, it took a bit of time to get moving, whether that be due to CAS or whatever whatever the reasons are, the root causes are. I think we've done a good job of filling gaps and providing Nuno with a squad that has a lot of depth, a lot of dimension, a lot of talent, just overall. And so he can't be too disappointed, per his comments recently. Maybe he might have issues with some of the way that certain types of players operate stylistically or in terms of how he feels like he can utilize them. But I think he just can't deny the fact that of a lot of the clubs in the Premier League, I think we've had one of the best windows of anyone. And I think we've genuinely hit the right areas in order to provide ourselves the right coverage and the right support so that we can navigate through this difficult period of time. Because I know Paul's brought it up. I think you touched on it, Greg, in terms of the sheer number of matches we're going to have to face and stretches. And so it's really going to put us at risk if we had anywhere close to the kind of setup we had last season, which we do not now at this stage. So there's a lot of good balance between future prospects coupled with the right support for what we need right now, which is to have enough bodies, enough quality in order to be successful in some of these cup matches and some of these European competition, as well as the Premier League, of course.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Right, so what I want to do now is I've managed to, as you were speaking, to dip into our WhatsApp. That's not the right one at all. I want this one. And it's going to take us all the way back, guys.
Boy.
So I'm now going to give you a bit of a rundown as to what's happened since the window opened. And we're going back to June, aren't we? Because we had it open kind of early because of the Club World Cup. So Andrew Omobamidele was the first one out the door. He completed a permanent transfer to Strasbourg. So we wished him well, and off he went as well. And then we had even better news. 4 more years of Nico Williams. A brand new deal for Nico Williams was confirmed back on the 1st of July. That was followed by news that Tyler Bindon was joining Sheffield United on a season-long loan. So he's at Sheffield United. They've got underway rather badly. I have to say. I think they've lost 5 out of 5, sitting bottom of the table. I think he's played in every game. My mum's side of the family are all Sheffield and Sheffield United. So I was talking about him and Sheffield United to some folks recently, and they say, yeah, he's a good player, but he's young and obviously he's finding his feet still. So, we've got high hopes for him. Hopefully the loan does prove to be a successful one. It was official that the smiling man himself, Ola Aina, signed a brand new deal as well. It came out on July the 7th. We were hoping that he would extend, and he did indeed. So we tied down Nico, we tied down Ola Aina, both of our starting fullbacks who we love so dearly, signed, sealed, and delivered. And then it was time for another exit. Ramon Sosa, only been at the club a year. It was confirmed that he was joining the Brazilian side Palmeiras on a permanent deal, and he left the club around July the 9th. Then the big one, Newcastle came in, and it wasn't really a big surprise to me that Newcastle were going to come back in for Anthony Elanga, and they did. And a permanent transfer was completed to Newcastle on July the 11th. And it felt like, that was a big one. This was the big sale. This was the one that we perhaps didn't want to lose, but we knew we were going to have to lose someone. It was around this time as well. And I know it's not on the slide deck, but the whole Morgan Gibbs-White situation reared its head, and we started to panic and think, shit, what's going on? Danilo left the club on July the 18th to go to Botafogo on a permanent transfer. So, a player that I think is held in high affection, always had a smile on his face. That injury really did him, didn't it, Richard?
Gosh, yeah.
He scored a fantastic goal for Botafogo the other night. Fond memories of Danilo, Richard?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about the goal against Brentford, the goal against Brighton. That beautiful touch from Morgan Gibbs-White. But to your point, it's just unfortunate that it never quite hit the heights that we wanted to in terms of consistency, because he did have some injury issues. And of course, that unfortunate, breaking his ankle at the beginning of last season. But he definitely seemed to be a favorite of Nuno's, even though he didn't quite live up to the expectations of the fan base. I mean, he was very versatile. I mean, he was creative. He was good on the ball. But, as we saw last season, he just couldn't quite overcome the psychology of trying to engage on the tackle and things of that nature, especially when he was playing in a bit of a deeper role and he needed him to be a little bit more physical. So, yeah, it's a real shame, because he's a quality person, and just wish him well in Brazil. I'm sure he's enjoying being back in his home country.
Yeah, absolutely. We wish him well. Okay. So, even more news. Matt Sells, it was announced, had signed a new contract with the club. Not an extension, but improved terms for him. So basically more money in his back pocket. Thoroughly deserved. Golden Glove winner. And of course, Yashin Trophy nominee at the Ballon d'Or as well. So, he proved again yesterday with a couple of really good saves that he is a top quality keeper. So tying Matt Sells down, or rather giving him the deal to give him more money, was definitely a wise one in my opinion. And so we were talking about incomings, and it felt like for a long time the name Igor Jesus was being touted around, and it was confirmed on July the 20th that Igor Jesus from Botafogo was a done deal. So the striker option that we were hoping we would have, or one striker option to come in and help with Chris Wood and Taiwo, had arrived at the club. And it wasn't long after that his teammate from Botafogo, Jair Cunha, a young player, he's just 20 years old, centre-back, 6'4", 6'5", played in the Club World Cup, also announced by Forest. So the feeling was pretty good. The whole Gibbs-White affair was happening around this time, Richard. But we'd managed to get in Igor Jesus, we'd managed to get in Jair Cunha, the two players that we really hoped would come and join us. Just kind of cast your mind back a month or so, and talk to me about at that point it looked like Gibbs-White was going. Again, just reminders, you've always been a huge Gibbs-White fan. Let's not get into his game yesterday. Let's not get into the season so far. Kind of more just a quick 30 seconds on, would it have really killed you if Gibbs-White had left and gone to Spurs at that time?
I think from a tactical standpoint, it would have been a departure from what we're used to, because he was the linchpin to what we did from an attacking standpoint. I mean, everything seemed to flow through him. We certainly saw Anderson begin to take on that role. The weird thing about this period of time too was everyone was getting restless because of the fact that we had vacated that right wing role with Alanga, and then I think adding that Gibbs-White element on top of it just made everybody a bit nervous and a bit frustrated that nothing was kind of moving at a pace that anyone anticipated. We assumed we would be getting someone in, or we'd have a plan in place right away, and we'd have someone in immediately, but it didn't quite happen. I mean, it took the big boss coming in and kind of resetting a little bit and putting Tottenham in their place and not allowing them to kind of take over that situation and execute that deal without approval from him and from the club. So it would have definitely been a shift, but we were kind of anticipating him before the season concluded going to Man City. So I kind of made my peace with it and felt it was good for him and his future prospects with England, good for us, because maybe now you start to make Elliot Anderson the central figure to how you do things. He becomes the new talisman to your team because he's clearly got all the skill sets to do so. So I kind of made peace with it. I'm glad he's still here, because he's a huge part of the club, a huge part of the club's history in returning to the Premier League. So it's more than happy to have him as part of it now.
Another player who we think is the future of Forest is young Zach Abbott. He, again, signed a brand new contract, committing his future until the summer of 2029. So, we've got high hopes for Zach, and we are very thrilled that he has put pen to paper as well. Lewis O'Brien completed a permanent transfer to Wrexham around July 24th. He didn't really get a look in at Forest. He had a spell of games in that first season, but loans away in America, and I think in the Championship last season. He's got a good move to Wrexham, who are going all out to try and get into the Premier League as well. And then there's the information that or the statement and the confirmation on July the 26th, a statement of intent from our owner, Evangelos Marinakis, as Morgan Gibbs-White signs a record deal at the club. until the summer of 2028. So confirmation that the big man had moved heaven and earth to make sure that Gibbs White stayed, and the saga, or that saga, came to an end. And it felt like, okay, we can now get ourselves moving in the right direction in terms of the next step. And the one that we really wanted to get through the door was Dan Ndoye, and we did. We managed to secure him. We managed to get him in, and we beat off competition. He came in from Bologna, and there were other clubs that were sniffing around him. I think Napoli especially wanted Dan Ndoye. And again, you know, it's funny because I've got to be honest, guys. I don't know about anyone else listening or watching, but these players don't come onto my radar throughout a normal season. I'm watching Forest. I watch a lot of the Premier League. I watch a lot of football, but I don't keep an eye on every single player everywhere. So I can't admit and can't say, oh, God, yeah, Dan Ndoye, I know him really, really well. I'm desperate for him to come. But, of course, once you hear of a name, you know, you kind of do your research. And, yeah, you kind of get on board and think, well, look, if the club want him, he looks really, really good. So he came in the door and, you know, a player that, not a replacement, Richard, for Elanga in terms of like for like, but certainly a player to fill that right wing slot. And he started the first 3 games of the season, a goal and an assist. I'm going to interrupt myself and tell you that it is official that Kouibano is a red. It has been announced by Nottingham Forest on X. So that deal has got over the line as we expected. So the 4th player from Botafogo has now joined the club officially. Kouibano has joined. He's 22 years old, so another young left back. He likes to get forward. He's a bit of a marauder. So he's coming in and has been confirmed as well. We'll get onto him a little bit more in just a moment, Richard. I want to get back onto to your slide deck you put together so eloquently. A player, Richard, that and I'm not going to say divided opinion, because I think everybody was of the same opinion that Matt Turner really isn't a very good goalkeeper. But I've kind of felt for him a little bit. You know, a deal was done or struck or something was signed somewhere to say that he was going to Olympique Lyonnais. And then they tried to back out of it, and Textor had left their club, and, you know, it all got very, very messy. And so Matt Turner leaves Forest officially to go to Olympique Lyonnais. They don't even announce him. They don't even make any kind of statement about him. And he's immediately shipped on loan back to America. And I think he's gone back to
New England.
New England, yeah. So, look, he's not, in my eyes, he's not a footballer. He's not a goalkeeper. Good luck to him. But, yeah, I was personally very pleased to see him leave Nottingham Forest because I just don't think he's very good. But then a new goalkeeper comes in, Angus Gunn. So a really good kind of background, I guess you could say. A strong background from Norwich, the son of Brian Gunn, former Scotland goalkeeper. Angus Gunn back in the Scotland squad this time around as well. So he's coming in as what we thought would be the number 2. And so he was confirmed in August the 6th. And then it started to happen, Richard. All of a sudden, things started to click into place. And the good feelings seem to be back on the agenda. Amari Hutchinson was officially announced on August 16th. Now, 37.5 million from Ipswich feels like 30 million, 35 million is almost like the going rate, like the base rate for these kind of players now. If it sounds really a lot of money. Where are you on Amari Hutchinson? I mean, he had an okay under-21s tournament. I think he scored even in the semi-final or the final. He scored a good goal. Where are you on Hutchinson? Happy to have him on board?
I am. I think he fits the what Nuno wants to do in terms of ball carrying, ball retention. He can take players on. You know, he's quick. Like a number of these players. Callum Wendo is another one. This very really nice short area quickness, right, in terms of creating problems for opposing fullbacks and so on and so forth, or center backs if it's Callum Wendo in that striker role. But yeah, I was happy to get him. I mean, I think it adds that layer of what we've needed in terms of developing young talent. I mean, we've got 3 until he got called up to a senior squad in Elliot Anderson, but we've got 3 of those players that was just on the under 21 squad, and so it felt like we were moving in a direction where we're really trying to build that depth, not only in terms of, like I said earlier, where we provide the right quality of player for the moment, what we need now in order to play certain matches and get their minutes in through some of these matches where we need to rest players or spell players that are our normal starting 11. But he also puts us in a position where, if he gets enough traction and starts to see more of the field and shows his quality and his talent, clearly that puts us in an advantageous position to potentially sell him on for decent money. But to your point, I mean, when you start hitting the 30, 35, close to 40 million mark, you're putting yourself in a bit of a difficult situation, because that really means you're going to have to wait for a little bit of amortization and a reduction in what is, owed for that particular player in order to see the value of it, the ROI. So, but I definitely think he can do it. I think he showed a little flash of it. Clearly didn't have the finishing the other day against Crystal Palace, but he showed he's a quick, agile, effective player on the ball. And so we've definitely needed that a little bit. And as these players get more acclimated to the system and playing with the other guys around them, I think they'll start to show their quality, more consistently.
Young English player was something that I think is really important for us to be signing. And then there's another one, James McAtee, who is a player that we've spoken about quite a bit. He was a player that I wanted us to sign. I think he is a good player. I was impressed yesterday when he came on for about 10 minutes. I didn't like that he was put on the wing to replace Dan Ndoye. I don't think that's his position. I wanted to see him come on yesterday for Morgan Gibbs-White, who wasn't having a good game. So I would have preferred him to have been hooked at halftime and James McAtee brought on, because that's where he can really operate. He was the under-21 captain in the summer. So we're signing young, impressive, talented English players. And you look at Morgan Gibbs-White, he came to the club 3 years ago. You look at Elliot Anderson, both now in the full England squad. And if that doesn't send a message out to young, talented English players or young players of any kind, because, of course, all the players we're bringing in, Bakwa and Kalimawendo and all the rest of it, they're young players that hopefully can now see that this is the place for development. Nuno and his staff are going to develop you and give you a chance in the first team. And if you're good enough and if you can impress enough, then you will play and you will have a chance to get into your national squad. So Elliot Anderson, Morgan Gibbs-White are kind of setting that tone. So I personally am thrilled that we've got Hutchinson and James McAtee, because I think they're going to have a lot to offer. And that kind of link-up play between Anderson and McAtee and Hutchinson, Gibbs-White, they're going to have an understanding. They're going to come through a system or playing a system with England where they're going to be familiar with each other. So I'm really excited to see that on the pitch. So, yeah, another fantastic signing for me to get McAtee through the door. And that was followed by Arno Kalimawendo. Again, he kind of falls into the same mode as what I was saying a moment ago, Richard, about Dan Ndoye. Not a player that, if you said, Arno Kalimawendo, he's not a player I'd have gone, I watch him all the time. I know who you mean. I've got to be honest with you. I have to go and look him up and check him out and familiarize myself with these players, because I'm not keeping an eye on every single player everywhere. But he looks a real quality, tidy asset. And so, again, it's another player to get excited about, isn't it?
Yeah, nice variation from what we're used to with Chris Wood, right? Who's kind of fits more of a traditional striker role. This guy's got a little bit. You were talking about Brian Brobby earlier before I unfortunately lost my access to my laptop. But I think that he's a similar type player in terms of he's good with some nice. He's a good passer inside tight areas and tight windows within the box, and he's also a good finisher. I mean, he had 18 goals last season. He's good at penalty taking. I mean, he provides a little bit more. What's what I'm looking for? Different options in terms of how you support that midfield by playing a little bit deeper, picking up the ball, getting things moving. But at the same time, when he gets the ball in around the box, he's got enough skill in the ball to be dangerous and difficult for defenders. But then he'll finish, and I think that's key. As we've long said, there's been too much dependency on Chris Wood's conversion rate, which has been spectacular and has been consistently spectacular, especially the last couple of seasons. But I think having that sort of dependency really put us at risk last season. So having a guy like him who can come off the bench and maybe hopefully give you 8 to 10 goals this season across all competitions. Similarly, have Jesus fill in with 4 or 5 goals to add on top of that. I think it really doesn't put as much burden on Chris Wood to have to be constantly on, even though you would anticipate that from your striker clearly, and with a guy with his experience. But
Can't do it on his own.
he can't. He cannot, and that's why you have Ndoye. That's why you have Callum, and you need Callum servicing those crosses in. It wasn't quite sharp enough yesterday, as we know. We'll digress from that. We've spoken enough about that, but I think you've got players on the team to do that, to give him that kind of service.
I love Callum down the left. I love Callum Hudson-Odoi. I absolutely love Callum Hudson-Odoi. But him playing down the left, it's clear to me that he just gets the ball and he wants to check back in all the time. So, if we've got a player with a left foot going down there at times, maybe coming on for Callum, offering something different to Callum that's not going to check inside and whip over a first-time ball. I want to see that from someone. I want to see that kind of player at Forest. The Dylan Bakwa deal is going down to the line. Sky are reporting that it's going down to the wire. It was on a deal sheet. So the deal sheet went in, and so they've got until 9 o'clock to complete it. So we are about 3 or 4 minutes away from that. So we're hoping that the Dylan Bakwa deal will be done. Raf is in the comments. He's saying apparently it is a done deal. He's hearing that through a source. So we hope that's the case. And yeah, I agree with you, Paul Morley. Let's just hope it's not an eye test issue, because we've had enough of those in the past. Okay, back to the slide deck. This is a player that's come in who many didn't think was going to come. Maybe some thought that maybe it was agent talk. Maybe he was being touted to try and get a move elsewhere. But this, it feels, or it's clear, is very much an Edu Gaspar move, the global director at Forest, who has been a big cog in the upset wheel for Nuno. Douglas Luiz coming in from Juventus. He hasn't had, it's fair to say, a good year at Juventus. And in fact, I was in Rome, as you all know, last week, and I had my Forest shirt on. And one thing that was really heartwarming was the amount of Italians that said, "Oh, Nottingham Forest, Nottingham Forest." They recognised his shirt and they got a lot of respect for Nottingham Forest. And in fact, when we got to the Coliseum, reminded me, we ended up getting to the Coliseum about 35 minutes before our slot. And actually, they're really shit hot on you going in on your time slot to get in the Coliseum. And so the guy said, "Oh, Nottingham Forest, Nottingham Forest." He looked at my phone and he said, "Oh, you're early, you can't come in." He went, "Oh, no, you're Nottingham Forest, you come in now." So he let me in with Evelina. So, whether he'd let me in or not, but anyway, but he made a big fuss about Forest. But what I was trying to get to was I spoke to another Italian about Douglas Luiz. And I said, "Yeah, we signed Douglas Luiz and he's coming in." And he said, Juventus, not good. So his reputation in Italy last year at Juventus isn't great. So I'm hoping that we're going to get the Aston Villa Douglas Luiz. It may well be that he's gone to a club, gone to a country, he hasn't settled. The system that he's been asked to play in, I don't know the ins and outs of it. Maybe it hasn't worked for him. But, he's yet to get off the bench for Nuno. I don't know if that's mind games or any other kind of game at play. But he's a quality player, Richard. Douglas Luiz at Forest. Surely we're going to see him in a red shirt at Arsenal, right?
I would certainly hope so. I think
we're playing Arsenal. Probably be the white shirt.
Yeah, right. But I would certainly hope so. I think, at first I wasn't enamored with the idea, as we've talked about, just simply because I didn't want the wage thing to become problematic. I didn't want, this sort of expectation to be levied simply based off of how he played at Aston Villa, which was spectacular. It was great football when he was there. I think part of the challenge is clearly the position or the role that he plays. It's not a traditional 6, as we know. It puts maybe Anderson at risk if you bring Luis in, because you're now expecting him to be more box to box, and you're expecting Anderson to drop deeper and play a little bit deeper.
Richard, I'm going to interrupt you. I am sorry, but I want to bring you something from David Ornstein. Nottingham Forest working to sign Alexander Zinchenko from Arsenal before the window shuts. Yeah.
What in the world?
Nottingham Forest agree a loan deal with Arsenal, and personal terms are in place for the 28-year-old. The deal sheet was submitted after the Galan move collapsed. They are attempting to complete. So, breaking news, guys, from David Ornstein. Nottingham Forest are in the final throes of trying to get Alexander Zinchenko from Arsenal across the line. It would be a loan deal, personal terms in place for the 28-year-old, deal sheet submitted. The Galan move has officially collapsed. So we know that is definitely off. Richard has gotten so excited that I've lost him. He's back. He's back. He's there again.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, I had to close the door.
kind of
My son
interrupted.
was
Listen,
watching
when
something.
when breaking news is happening, then we got to get to it. So, give me your thoughts, your knee-jerk reaction. Alexander Zinchenko to Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, certainly had the injury woes, but I think he's definitely fits the profile. He's probably what you want to see from Cuobano, but he's just quite not ready yet. I think not quite ready yet. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. So it seems like with the Cuobano, it's a future state scenario versus Zinchenko, which probably feels a bit more plug and play, but he gives you that forward, element to his game, that forward thinking element, that advancing element, that marauding element that you just referenced in relation to Cuobano. So decent defender, but clearly provides you the support on that left-hand side in terms of his ability to stress a back line and to work cohesively, hopefully with Callum. But yeah, sorry, my dogs are very excited about Zinchenko, if you can't hear that in the back.
Well,
there's quite a lot of activity going on in the Spray household at the given moment. So yeah, but no, that's fantastic. I think that's a shocker. I think that's the one that you always say, Greg. There's always one that comes out of the woodwork you're not anticipating. So that qualifies.
I'm sorry, but I said as well, didn't I, in the WhatsApp group earlier, I said there is going to be a late last-minute twist.
100%.
And at 9 o'clock,
M. Night Shyamalan move. Yeah.
With the window closed officially 2 hours ago, and the deal sheet being submitted with no one knowing about, it does feel like I'm going to have to do the chubby checker twist. Come on, baby, let's do the twist. There we go. That's all you're going to get.
Very good.
Paul Morley, I hope you're happy. There you go. But listen, that is still to be confirmed as being a done deal. But Zinchenko, experience, what's not to like about that? I mean, I must admit, that's kind of taking my breath away a little bit. It kind of makes me think, clearly the Nuno, the coaches, the staff, whoever it is, they want that fifth fullback. So we've got Ola and Nico operating. We've got Savono. We've got Cuobano just been confirmed last 10, 15 minutes or so. And now Alexander Zinchenko. That's 5 fullbacks there. I mean, that's exciting. I mean, I'm really excited. So hopefully that is going to be confirmed. Sasha Tavalieri is saying that the backward deal is done as well. I saw that as well, Andrew. Andrew in the comments just tweeting that as well. So it looks like the backward deal is done. I'm still waiting for official confirmation, as we all would be, from the club itself. So, this is the place to be, guys. I feel like we're on Sky Sports News here, Richie, with breaking news all of a sudden. I think we picked our time slot quite nicely. I'm quite happy with that. The other pod went and we let them do their thing, and I thought we'll come at the end and we'll sweep up. We'll sweep up the scraps. Let's have a look. Right, okay. So Simon in the comments saying Zinchenko signed. I'm not sure. Yep. Let's have a look. Nottingham. Ornstein is now saying Nottingham Forest have signed Alexander Zinchenko from Arsenal. The deal is now complete. So, yeah, if it comes from Ornstein and he's saying that it's been completed, then I'll take that. So Zinchenko complete. Okay, so that's a great signing. Right, and breathe. Where were we? We're going back to our slide. I interrupted you on the Douglas Luiz thing. We're not going to go back into Douglas Luiz.
No,
I know you're excited about him. I'm excited about him as well. What we will do is we will kind of get us almost up to date with Nicolo Savona signing. He's that fullback we were talking about earlier, Richard. 6'4", 6'5" right back. A more solid defensive style of profile from a right back. We're not going to see him marauding down the wing. I don't think doing any overlaps. Well, maybe we will be like a gazelle down
Definitely
the wing. the news that Orlando was waiting for and thrilled about was this one, with the confirmation that Callum Hudson-Odoi has signed an extension to take him through. He's with us for another 3 years, so he was into his final year. And you know what? That interview he did with Ola Aina, where Ola kind of, surprised him. I must admit, I'm gonna be honest with you. I felt a bit emotional watching that, seeing these two young men speaking so highly about Nottingham Forest and how they love the club and they want to stay and they call it home. it just felt great to hear them say that, because we love them and it feels like they love us back. And so I was really thrilled, Richard, to hear them talking so highly about Forest, and truly thrilled that Callum is calling Forest his home.
Yeah, for sure. And he's certainly performed at the highest level that he's done in his career. I mean, even with England call-ups and so forth when he was at Chelsea. But, he's a different type of player now. He doesn't have quite the same electric pace that he did when he was with Chelsea, but he's still been fantastic for us. And candidly, before last season, I think it was the season before, where didn't he have like 8 goals, I think, in that season. And that, to me, was so essential to how we closed that season out in Nuno's first year as our manager, or first half season as our manager. I think he was such a critical part of that. And so having that kind of ability with still a very young age too. I mean, for goodness sakes, I think he's going to be 24 this season. So and there's a core that we know in the dressing room that needs to be retained, and he and Ola are an enormous part of that, if not the part of it that keeps it moving forward. As Dan continues to utilize his phrasing, vibes. I think Raf's latched onto that too. The vibes. Those two guys are the ambassadors of vibes. So it's having those kinds of personalities in the team, coupled with their ability on the pitch, that you just cannot deny, and it's essential to what we are. And the kind of culture that we've developed under Nuno. So I'm grateful that he did that, because it was getting a little bit tenuous. The question became, so I think at one point Napoli was in form as well. We're considering him, as well as Jadon Sancho. So thankfully he stayed with us, and he's going to be a key part of what we do going forward. And hope he can stay healthy this season, because he definitely has a lot to offer. And I think, he does get a little bit one-dimensional at times, but I think he's really tried to mix that up a little bit. Utilize the left side of left foot a little bit more, get a little bit more added to his game from that perspective, so he doesn't get kind of locked into being a one-trick pony, as it were. And so I definitely love the guy as a human being and as a player. So, looking forward to good things to come from him.
Fantastic. And so John Victor was confirmed just yesterday, I think it was, and kind of losing track of days. He is the goalkeeper from Botafogo, played in the Club World Cup. I was really impressed with him. In the Club World Cup, I watched his performances. He made some excellent saves, and I remarked out loud to Orlando, we should look to sign this guy. He's really good. I think we maybe signed the wrong goalkeeper. And so for him to make his way to the club, I'm really thrilled about that. I think he would be a really good addition. So with him and Angus Gunn supporting Sells and pushing Sells as well. We want Sells to be pushed, and to not be a foregone conclusion. Bring the best out of each other. Goalkeepers union means that they all stick together, they all work together, they all eat together normally. They truly try and get the best out of each other. So welcome John Victor. And then there's confirmation of Eric da Silva Moreira going on loan to Rio Ave that we spoke about earlier. Max Scott, big Forest fan, talk sport host and presenter. He was talking earlier on X about the Dylan Bakwa deal being done and dusted almost, with the medical happening. And we are hearing that it is done. People on X are talking quite confidently that it's done. So we're thrilled about that, and more confirmation on Josh Bowler, who left the club and has now gone back to Blackpool. My goodness me, it's never a dull moment when it's a transfer window, when it's Nottingham Forest. And so I guess we need to kind of bring up the depth chart, Richard, and I've pulled this up. You sent it to me earlier. We haven't included the under-21 players on this. We know that Zach Abbott, who possibly was looking to get a loan away as well. We know about Jer Cunha, who's an under-21 player. So they're not on the depth chart. So before you start going, you've missed so-and-so off, we know. We've just included what we thought would be the 25-man squad. There are 25 names there now. We need to add Alexander Zinchenko, which makes 26. So, interestingly, it feels like maybe one player isn't going to make the Premier League squad, or isn't going to make the Euro squad, or whatever it is. I don't know. But with Zinchenko coming in, I'm looking at that, and there's been no talk or no news of anybody else exiting the club. Richard's just left me again for the moment. I'll put him back in again. You're back. There you go. There's been here you go. There's been no news of anyone exiting. Now we kind of had our eye on Morato as maybe a player to go out. It could be that we see possibly one of our new signings go out on loan to maybe Olympiacos or elsewhere. I mean, Curibano, possibly at 22 years of age, it might be that he's still viewed as a developmental prospect, and maybe he's going to be shipped out on loan to Olympiacos or elsewhere. So I guess it all comes down to windows and when they close and when they don't close. Really, I'm not sure about the Greek window. Again, maybe someone in the comments will help me with the Greek window. I know the Turkish window is open, maybe for another couple of weeks. In fact, the Turkish window. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I can't see anything happening for Saudi with any of our players going out. So, yeah, it kind of feels like we've assembled a really strong squad, Richard. One that we've asked for. Okay, we've asked for that depth. We've asked for those players to come in to challenge. We've asked for our starters to feel the heat. And there was that question all the way at the start of the podcast. I'll go back and try and find it. And it was someone who was saying, do any of the new players, I think it was Friar Tuck. There we go.
Yeah.
It is again, lots of signings this window, but how many of them are better than our current starters? Well, that's a question, isn't it? I mean, do they need to be better? Is it not the case that they need to be very good quality, as good as or better, but also they need to be different? Because when you're bringing players on, you need players that have different qualities and different profiles. It's all well and good saying, well, look, I want to bring on a like-for-like player. I mean, if you're going to bring on a like-for-like player, then maybe you're going to get the same outcome. So we want players with different skill sets. We've got a Bakwa who likes to blast down the wing by the sounds of things. And Doy is quite depth on, on his feet. He's fast, but he's not that fast. We saw yesterday that he can get in behind. So different profiles from these players. Are you satisfied that the skill set throughout that squad is good enough?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think as you pointed out, I mean, in Doy you could potentially in some matches move him to the left if you want to spell Callum, put him on the bench just to give him a little bit of a rest. You could bring Bakwa in to play on the right. You've got, if you want to go a two up front, you could bring in Jesus and Callum Wendo. You've got the versatility now. You've got the variation of players and skill sets, as you referenced, to provide different ways of attacking teams. And, I think what we've seen from Nuno, he does have a base sort of formation or setup, that 4-2-3-1, but I think he's definitely open to some versatility as it relates to how he establishes maybe a back three, how he plays a back five. I mean, there's definitely going to be opportunity for him to reassess that and have a bit more at his disposal than he's been used to. I understand the lean squad. I think Dan said in his previous seasons, I think it was the last season he had with Wolves, he said that he played with about a core of about 10 players that are just the core players. And then he had another, I think they were playing over 70% of the minutes. And then he had another group of players right after that I think cumulatively ended up being around 19. So he definitely doesn't like he likes a thin squad, but I just think with the way things shaked out, how it shook out last season, he would definitely tell you there was too much at risk in terms of not having players who are injured, having enough time to get healthy, 100% healthy, coupled with, just the fatigue and everything else that accompanied that. Because we certainly didn't expect to be where we were for as long as we were in that third position in the table. What was it, 12 weeks consecutively? So you put yourself in a position now where if you get to that kind of level in the table, it's going to be difficult, as we know, with all the matches that are forthcoming. But I do think that you put yourself in that position again, you're definitely going to have enough depth to manage it and to weather that storm. So, and again, we keep saying it. It's the ability to develop those players too. And at some point, some of these players may get sold, like a Morgan Gibbs-White, for example, or a Murillo. And then you're going to have to, maybe even Anderson, if some crazy number comes in next season or the season following, because he could be £100 million+ player if he continues going the way that he is.
100%. He is world class,
gold standard. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
There's people saying that Elliot Anderson wasn't very good yesterday, and I'm sorry, but they're wrong. Elliot Anderson was still very good yesterday. I watched him live.
Yeah.
He
for
is
his normal
fucking
output.
everywhere. He is fucking everywhere. He is everywhere. He wants the ball. He wants the ball. and he goes and takes it. Okay, fine, in a couple of moments maybe, but he is an unbelievably good footballer. We are so lucky to have him. We used to talk about building the team around Morgan Gibbs-White. We need to build this team around Elliot Anderson because he is a midfield master. He is the best centre midfielder we have had at the club since Roy Keane, who was astonishingly good for us. When Roy Keane played for us, he was box to box. When he ended up at United, he became much more of a not a holding midfielder, not at all, but he wasn't box to box like he was at Forest. Elliot Anderson is the best centre midfielder we've had at Nottingham Forest since then, and he is that good. So he's going to be the one where they're coming in with big money for him. And I'm calling it now. Newcastle will be the first to try and get him back.
You would assume so with money that they've got now.
Yes, Arsenal. Now they've got 125 million quid. They will be the first ones to come back. And this stupid talk, he wouldn't get in ahead of Bruno Guimaraes, ahead of Joe Linton. Piss off. He is better than them. He will get in ahead of them. So I don't want him to leave, of course, but he's the one that they're going to come back and try and get.
For sure.
All right, Richard, we've done it. We've cracked it. We've done our transfer deadline day episode together. We said we wanted to do a few more episodes with just Richard and I because it's been a while since we did that. We're truly thankful for all of our contributors that come on and help us and chip in. But we wanted to go old school with this one and just do a Greg and Richard episode. So as much as it was difficult at times because Richard was losing his internet and losing his mind and all the rest of it, I hope that you get stuck with us. Please go ahead and hit like and subscribe, people. Do us a favor, help us get our numbers up. When you hit like and subscribe, what it means, right? Basically, and I'm not an expert. It means that the algorithm sees that and it shares us with more people. So we're just trying to kind of get us out there. What we're trying to do with Talking Reds is just have fun, talk Forest, get you guys involved as much as possible, and really forge a Forest fan community. That's what this is all about. Okay, so you're as much a part of this as anyone else. So thank you so much for all of you for watching and joining in and commenting and all the rest of it. We're truly thankful and grateful for your input. Okay, we're going to go. Richard, I'm not going to have time for final thoughts, so we'll be here all night. One thing I will say is thank you very much to you over in Oklahoma. You've had a day off today. It's been Labor Day, whatever that is in America. It's a bank holiday for you. So we're able to get 2 doses of Richard spray today, which is great. The window's slammed shut, guys. We've made some great signings, and we did get that final twist at the end with a surprise signing of Alexander Zinchenko coming into Forest, an experienced player and one that we should welcome with open arms. Hopefully, Nuno is now going to start shuffling his pack. He's been dealt a very, very good hand. There's time for the players to come together over the international break. Those that are in the building, those that are away on international duty, we'll be watching you and we'll be supporting you. But when they're back at Arsenal, let's see them on the pitch. Let's see them going for it. Zinchenko won't be able to play against Arsenal. We know that much for certain. But yeah, let's get behind the lads. Let's get behind the team. Come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard.